Audra Yankton, empowerment and intuition coach, and this is Unveil You, the podcast where spirituality meets practicality to help you step fully into your power. Each episode, we'll talk about what it really means to align with your higher self, trust your inner knowing, and walk through life with grounded, soul-led confidence. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Unveil You Podcast. This is the first installment of my second season. I can't even believe that it's been, less than a year ago when I started this, but yeah, I decided to just keep season 1 in 2025, and it is January 6th as I record this. Not sure exactly what day this will come out, but yeah, it's a fresh new year, and Happy New Year to you all. I hope your 2026 has been off to a positive and hopeful start. Yeah, I took a break. I needed a few months to kind of get myself together, find my inspiration again. And also I just, realized I'd been pushing on not just this business, but just my life in general. Things were crazy. I ended up randomly just before Thanksgiving, we got like a new house, which is going to be, spoiler alert, the inspiration for this episode. That we'll talk about in just a second, but I just found myself drowning in a lot of life things. And, I am really bad at this thing called surrender. And those of you who have been in the spiritual community for a while now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's this thing with it called sacred pause that I felt like I just really needed to take. And that was basically where, I had a really big year last year of soul expansion and going through a lot of energetic upgrades and things of that nature. I just needed a minute to physically anchor everything I'd been going through in a spiritual sense and energetic sense. So I spent some time, again, moving homes with my family. We were integrating the lessons learned and for me anyway, spiritual lessons that were learned, actually anchoring them into my physical body. And then I feel like this time gave me the ability for my body to physically catch up, which I'm feeling much more refreshed and just a lot better overall. So we're today on that note with the new house, we're diving into something that I find absolutely fascinating. Also one of those things that feels a little unbelievable and hokey until you really start to dive into your personal details on it. That's how a lot of people feel about astrology, which I've mentioned before in a few episodes. Like, I'm a huge fan of astrology. And in fact, it's like something that I do with clients now is looking at a few key pieces of your natal chart, because turns out everybody does have very unique things that are imprinted on them from the moment they're born. And anyway, beating around the bush here, today we're going to talk about home numerology. So this is one of those topics that bridges the mystical and the deeply practical in the most surprising way. You think it might not apply to you? Well, as we go through this and you start like calculating your house number, things like that, you're going to find out this probably actually does apply to you. So we're going to talk about what home numerology is, how it works, what it reveals about your life seasons. That's kind of the biggest thing, is kind of more of a retroactive look at your life and where you've lived and what it meant for you. And it kind of helps you understand like the lessons you were supposed to learn during that time in your life. And also how the address you're living in right now might be influencing your identity, your relationships, your healing journey, your spiritual awakening, even your career and your motherhood journey, like far more than you even realize. And the funny part is that this entire episode was sparked by Love is Blind on Netflix. Truly. For those of you who watched the Denver season last fall, I can't help myself. I always binge watch those episodes. They are just wacky and crazy. I don't know how long we're going to call it an experiment for. It doesn't really seem to work out too well. But there was a character, well, I say character, but I don't know if they're all casted or not. Let me know what you think. I think it's all kind of set up. But anyway, Sparkle Megan was her name, or what she went by on the show. And she was obsessed with finding a home in her, I can't remember what number she was looking for. But I know now that your home number is something that just happens to you. You probably shouldn't go the Sparkle Megan route where you're looking for a specific number to like force a new season upon in your life. It just kind of happens that way. You kind of get assigned the house you're supposed to have at the right time. I believe there's no coincidences in that way. So anyway, I was kind of like thinking, is this lady like making stuff up? I don't know. So I started looking into home numerology after I saw this episode, and just, she was so like, she's buying like a $1 to $2 million home, you guys. Like, this is not casual. And she was trying to like fit the whole address around like this home numerology thing, because she wanted to start her life in a new season of life for herself, or inspire a new season energetically for herself. So I was like, okay, if she's taking it this seriously, maybe there's something to it. So I paused the show kind of after I realized how serious she is about it. And I thought, you know what? I've lived in 3 really pivotal homes in my adult life so far. And what were those numbers, and what did those seasons teach me? So then I retroactively went back and looked at like the last 3 addresses, including this one that at the time I was going to be moving into. Now we're moved in. By the way, you can see I finally was able to put up my new sign because I have a new office, and it's great. So I'm feeling nice and inspired and refreshed with some new decor here. But that is besides the point. So anyway, I calculated my home numbers, and I thought about what I was going through when I was living in each of those homes. And everything in my body just went still, because the numerology matched literally every major transformation I was going through in each of those houses. So things like my spiritual awakening, my darkest depression, my pregnancy journey with my daughter, my business cycles, my void phases, my identity dissolving and ego death, the energy upgrades, like literally all of it. So today I am going to walk you through what home numerology actually is, how to calculate your house number, what each number means, and then my personal story through each of these 3 pivotal homes that I'm talking about. I mean, I could go back retroactively. I think I had like something like 5 or 7 different addresses in college. No way I could remember all of them at this point, but I bet you there'd be something really interesting with each of those as well. But yeah, so we're going to talk about my awakening house, my completion house, and then into the destiny house that we just moved into. And this is not like the last home I'm sure I will ever live in for the rest of my life, but it's definitely like one of the best spaces I've had the privilege of living in. And so it's just a kind of a sign that like, if you're intentionally trying to move forward in your life and call better things in all the time, you will get them, as long as you stick to your visions and your dreams, and just constantly, make efforts towards getting where you want to be. So that's really exciting. But this, I thought, was a really fun episode to kind of kick the year off with, because first of all, I just moved into this new house, and we all have a home address, right? So this literally applies to everyone. Anyone that has a home address, you can follow along in this episode and find your house number. So my hope is that you listen and you'll start to see your own life seasons differently. So not judge yourself so harshly for where you're at, but just kind of, see yourself in where you're at with more compassion, clarity, and trust that nothing has ever been random in your life. You don't get challenges from the universe just because the universe is trying to punish you for something. There's just always something you can be learning, and things that, we could be applying lessons learned into our life. So it might if you're kind of going through a challenging time right now, you might find your house number actually kind of supports like some kind of, high pressure growth that you're going through. And that doesn't necessarily make it easier, but I find that having understanding for the life season that we're in sometimes just helps me be like, okay, well, you know what? At least it was destined to go this way. So I'm going to go ahead and just embrace it for what it is, not feel like I'm failing in some way, shape, or form. You know what I mean? So as I've said before, there are no coincidences in life, and everything is just part of the universe's master plan for us. And looking back, I think it's really fun to see just how much things actually do go to this universal plan, whether or not we're trying to. That's the beautiful thing about the universe, is we can think that we're in the driver's seat and doing everything ourselves, but really everything is just unfolding as it's supposed to, whether or not we are participating. So that's, good and bad in some ways, right? Let's go ahead and dive in. So what is home numerology? It's this idea that your house carries its own energetic signature. So it's this container that holds you, and it has its own energy, right? Well, home does anyway. So it's a frequency that shapes the season of life you experience while you live there. So just like you have a life path number, your home does too. So, there's probably something I could dive into in a different episode. I don't know as much about it, but, adding up your date of birth and things like that, that's stuff has to do with your life path number. But your home equally has an energetic signature and a life path number, basically. So it influences so much more than people realize. Your home affects things like the identity work you go through, the emotional themes of your life, the kind of healing you're going to face, the stability or chaos you feel and are experiencing, your family and parenting dynamics, and ancestral things. Sometimes maybe you're in the middle of breaking cycles within your family. A home can influence that and that energy for you. Your creativity, your spiritual awakening, and even your relationships and career shifts, which is something that I'm going to talk about in my personal story as well. But think of your home as the energetic container for the chapter that you're in. Some homes feel like a rebirth, some feel like endings, some feel like total chaos, some are very grounding, and some feel like they're expanding you. Home numerology explains all of this and why. So now we're going to talk about how to calculate your house number. This part is super simple, and I'm giving this to you first before I talk about what each number means so that you can have your number ready for when I explain. That way you don't have to pause or rewind to go back and match your numbers. So after these instructions, if you want to pause and make sure you have your house number calculated so you can be ready for when I explain what that number means, that would probably be a good idea. So anyway, step one is you take the number that's printed on the front of your house. So it's only that number, not the street name or the zip code or anything like that. It's like if you live at 1234 Eagle Rock Lane, it's just 1234. You don't go ahead and add in the zip code or anything like that. So then step two is then add those digits together. So example, if you have 1747, you're going to add up 1 plus 7 plus 4 plus 7. That equals 19. So you're still, you have two digits there with 19. You want to be able to reduce it down to a single digit. So 19 is 1 plus 9 equals 10, which is still double digits technically. So 1 plus 0 equals 1. So in that example with 1747, that becomes 1. There is an exception, or actually 3 exceptions to this rule, is that if the number reduces naturally down to an 11, a 22, or a 33, you stop. Those are master numbers with heightened energy, and we're going to talk about what each of those means as well. So we'll talk about 1 through 9, and then 11 and 22 and 33. So if you need a minute to finish calculating this number and maybe even some past numbers, go ahead and pause right here. Okay, so now that we have our house number, we're going to go through what each home number means. So if you have a 1 house, if it, like in the example I gave, that was a 1 house. So this is identity, awakening, and being thrown back into yourself. And by yourself, I mean like on a soul level, like the self that came here to be, not the version of you that was built by societal standards and you people pleasing. I'm talking about being thrown back into your truest self. So a 1 house is about you, your identity, your self-concept, confidence, and independence. And living in a 1 home can feel like starting over or beginning a new chapter, being pushed to stand on your own 2 feet, having your old identity stripped away, kind of like I said, if society kind of built you up into somebody that you're not. In this kind of house, that'll get kind of taken from you and stripped away. Feeling alone even when you're not, because the focus is on the self. So this is a very introspective home, one that's going to make you really focus on yourself. So this is where you might go through an ego death, have a spiritual awakening, or maybe a more profound spiritual awakening if you've kind of started that process already. This is where you might start a business or a new career or a major life path, or realize you can't outsource your worth or clarity to anyone else. That's a really big one. So it kind of makes you realize that I'm this soul that came to this planet for a reason, my reasons alone and no one else's. And it just kind of makes you very introspective in that way. So it can feel very exciting, and it can also feel like your life is exploding, or a little bit of both. So a 1 house asked you, who are you when everything else is quiet? Okay. So if you got a 2 house, this is partnership, emotional safety, and learning to relate. So a 2 house is about connection and sensitivity. Living in a 2 house brings on a focus on romantic relationships or close partnerships, lessons in communication, compromise, and emotional honesty, heightened sensitivity to conflict or disharmony. So this can be a really beautiful house for if you're trying to deepen an existing relationship with somebody, heal any attachment wounds you might have from childhood or otherwise, learning to honor your needs and another person's needs, and bringing in more softness, support, and tenderness. So a 2 house asks you, how do you show up in partnership with others and with yourself? Next is a 3 house, which is expression, creativity, and finding your voice. So a 3 house is like a creativity portal, essentially. So in a 3 house, you might notice you're getting more social invitations, conversations, and ideas. You might have a desire to write, speak, sing, create, or share. You might have more laughter, playfulness, and lightness. Or this is where you might start to get a desire for more of that. This is a really great house number for content creation, starting a podcast, blog, or artistic practice, things of that nature, healing your throat chakra and the fear of being seen, which is huge, practicing not overthinking every word you say. So the shadow of this can be scatter or drama if you're not grounding your energy in a home with this kind of energy. So a 3 house asks you, are you willing to be fully expressed? Okay, next we have a 4 house, which is stability, structure, and grounding into real life. So a 4 house is that let's build something real energy. In a 4 home, life tends to focus on creating routines and structure, finances, planning, and practical steps, building a foundation that actually supports you long term. And this can look like getting serious about your savings, career, or long-term goals, craving simplicity, organization, and order, and wanting your home to feel like a true safe base. So the shadow side of this in this kind of home energy can be feeling stuck if you are resisting the growth here. So a 4 house will ask you, what foundations do you need so your nervous system can finally relax? Next, we have a 5 house, which is change, adventure, restlessness, and freedom. So a 5 house is kind of this wild card energy. If you live in a 5 house, you might experience things like frequent changes in things like jobs, relationships, travel, ideas, sudden moves or unexpected opportunities, more social activity or stimulation, or feeling restlessness or bored if life is feeling too predictable for you. It's a really great home for breaking out of ruts, exploring new versions of yourself, experimenting, dating, trying new things, but it can feel really chaotic if you're craving a deep stability. So a 5 house asks you, where are you ready to loosen control and let life move you? And then next we have a 6 house, which is family, nurturing, home as heart center. So a 6 house is the archetype of home, love, and care. And this is where you're going to get themes of family, children, pets, and caregiving, creating a cozy, beautiful, nurturing environment, being there for others and allowing others to be there for you. I think this is the house actually that Sparkle Megan was looking for now that I'm looking at my notes here. But yeah, she, bringing in more of that stable family structure life, things like that. So in a 6 house, you might grow your family, repair family dynamics, host more gatherings, or pour energy into making your space feel like a sanctuary. The shadow is like the shadow side of living in this type of energy container, if you're not really living in alignment with your true self, is overgiving or losing yourself in caretaking. So a 6 house asks you, what does it mean to be held and to hold others in a healthy way? So we're always talking about balance with the divine feminine and the divine masculine in this life. Any lifetime you live, it's always about balance. So that would be something to think about if you're living in a 6 house. Next, we have a 7 house, which is spiritual depth, solitude, and inner work. A 7 house is mystic energy. So living here often brings a desire to pull back from social noise, heightened intuition, dreams, and spiritual questioning, deep introspection, and self-discovery. You might, living in a 7 house, dive into spiritual studies, therapy, or shadow work, feel like you're in a quiet in-between place, and question what you truly believe and why. And sometimes people feel lonely in a 7 house, but it's really about being led inward and kind of exploring yourself in that way. A 7 house asks you, are you willing to sit with yourself long enough to hear your own wisdom? Next, we have an 8 house, which is power, money, visibility, and responsibility. An 8 house is all about expansion in the material world. Here you might experience big shifts in money, which it could go either way, gains, losses, or both, career elevation or leadership opportunities, or lessons around power, control, and integrity. This is a potent place for scaling a business, stepping into authority, or healing scarcity and money wounds, which is something we're going to talk about in a future episode this season, is this idea of scarcity and the relationship with money. So put a pin in that one for later. The 8th house shadow, where you're not living in alignment again, is burnout, overwork, or power struggles. So an 8th house asks you, what does aligned power and prosperity look like for you? Okay, and then the last of the single digit numbers, we have a 9th house, which is endings, completion, karmic clearing, and the void. So a 9th house is a graduation house. In this space, old cycles wrap up. You may experience the ending of relationships, jobs, identity, or ways of being. Feeling done with things you can't fully explain, intense emotional purging, grief, or release, long integration periods that feel like a void. And it's also a deeply spiritual time of compassion, forgiveness, and letting go. So the shadow side of a 9th house is clinging to what's leaving and feeling like life is falling apart. So if you don't embrace the cycles ending and things closing, this could be pretty tough for you. If you're somebody that really dislikes change and does not go with the flow, this house can kind of be destabilizing in that way. It's about, embracing the change. So a 9th house asks you, what are you brave enough to let go of so your next life can begin? Okay, so then as promised, I talked about these master numbers, the 2 digits that you don't need to reduce down any further. So in 11th house, this is intuition, soul-led leadership, and spiritual electricity. So 11 is a master number and amplifies intuitive, visionary energy. In an 11th house, you might notice increased synchronicities, angel numbers, and deja vu. Angel numbers being like those triple digit numbers, 333, 444, 888, things like that. Kind of feeling like somebody behind in a different dimension is like talking to you here on earth. Just these synchronicities. Maybe you thought of, maybe you thought the word banana and somebody right next to you started talking about banana. It's like, whoa, that's an example of a synchronicity. So you might notice some of that stuff start to happen more. Intuitive hits that are too strong to ignore, a pull towards spiritual service, healing, or teaching, or you might notice sudden activations of psychic gifts that maybe you didn't have before or you weren't tuned into before. It can be exhilarating, but also overstimulating if you don't ground. So again, imagining that you're literally grounded down to the earth, because sometimes if you get really into your psychic gifts, you can be living in your upper chakras, which is really disorienting to your physical body. So it's really important that if you're living in an 11th house, that you stay grounded into the physical here in the 3D world. An 11th house asks you, are you willing to lead and live from your intuition and not just your logic? A 22 house is our next master number. So this is a master builder, destiny in the physical, and embodied purpose. So 22 is the master builder, where spiritual purpose meets the tangible reality. In a 22 house, themes will often include building something that lasts, a business, a mission, a body of work, a legacy, something of that nature. It doesn't have to be something physical. It can include long-term stability after years of upheaval and chaos. This can be turning all of your spiritual insight into actual structures and systems. And also maybe just feeling like your real life is finally beginning. The one that you came to earth and intended to live, like, is just starting in a 22 house. So that's a really beautiful, beautiful home, I would say, to live in. It's powerful, grounded, and deeply karmic in a good way. And the shadow is, if you're not, living in alignment, again, the shadow side of this could be feeling like you should be doing more. But the medicine of this house is trusting sustainable, aligned action, not hustle culture. So a 22 house asks, are you ready to build the life your soul came here to live in a way your nervous system can actually hold? So finally, of the last of the master numbers I'm going to be talking about before we dive into my personal story is a 33 house. So this is the master teacher, compassion, and soul level service. So 33 is the highest master number. It's often called the master teacher or the Christed frequency in numerology, or Christed. either way. Living in a 33 house amplifies themes of unconditional love, healing others, emotional depth, service, compassion, forgiveness, and spiritual responsibility. This is a home where people are often asked to care for others. This can be children, parents, community, clients. People are asked to step into a teaching or healing role, lead with the heart rather than ego, hold space for big emotions, theirs and others, embody love in very human, imperfect ways. So a 33 house can feel deeply meaningful, as all those things I just said are very beautiful, important things, but it can also be very emotionally intense. So people living in a 33 house may experience heightened empathy, which can be a good and a bad thing. Sometimes when you are a very empathic person, you can really feel other people's emotions in a way that you're almost taking them on, which is not great. You got to have that energetic wall put up, which is something I've had to go through myself, and I now help others figure out how to do that, because if someone, is going through something, it's okay to hold space for them, but not take on their emotion. You don't want to do that. You might also experience strong emotional waves, lessons around boundaries, burnout if they overgive, and callings to help guide or heal. This is not a lighthouse. It's a responsibility house. So the shadow of 33 comes when someone sacrifices themselves, ignores their own needs, tries to save others, or carry the emotional weight of others that isn't theirs, as I said, with being an empath. So the growth of a 33 house is learning that love does not require self-erasure. A 33 house asks, how can you embody love, compassion, and service while still honoring yourself? So now that you understand the basics, here is where it gets wild with my home story. So I've broken it down to 3 houses, 3 identities, and 3 soul chapters. So this is where everything clicked for me with all this home numerology stuff, because each home I lived in carried the exact energetic theme of the life I was living at the time. Even when I had no idea what was happening, even when I felt lost or broken or in a void space that I couldn't explain, every house that I lived in explains it perfectly. So let me take you through it. So house number 1, this was a house I was living in Nebraska. Just before, I guess we bought the house just before my daughter was born. So I'm calling this the house that broke me open. This was my first home with my husband. Well, the one and only home we've purchased. Now we're just kind of fluidly living. It was kind of an impulse buy. I was pregnant. I was terrified. I didn't know what to expect becoming a mother. I knew we were living in Salt Lake City just before we bought this house, and I was working remotely so we could, the job was based in Nebraska, where my family's all from. And I was like, wow, you know what? We might as well just move there, because I don't know what I'm doing having a baby, and it would be really great to have some family support. So I was feeling like I needed the stability so desperately that we almost bought this house impulsively, and literally sight unseen, we were buying a house. It was crazy. And we flew in on closing day and bought it that way. My mom literally walked us through the house on FaceTime when she happened to be in the Omaha area one time. And yeah, it worked out really great. It was a great house, but it was a crazy situation, and it was kind of a fear-driven decision. So at that time, I had no idea that 1 is the number of identity awakening. So it was 1747. That was the example I gave earlier, was my first house that I'm going to talk about. So 1747, when you reduce it down, add it together and reduce it down, it's a 1 house. So looking back, that explains everything, because in that house, I went through the darkest depression I have ever experienced, that postpartum depression that kicked off everything, Unveil You and everything in between, from spiritual awakening to now. That depression really was very intense. It was very long, and that I experienced all of that in that house. I had my very first true spiritual awakening. I think I tried to have one in college, but I just kind of pushed it away because I just wasn't ready for that. So it was my first true spiritual awakening where I anchored it into the physical. I got laid off while I was living there. My identity was completely shattered. I didn't know what the heck I was doing with my life anymore. My sense of self collapsed, and I felt completely alone. I had a beautiful baby and a wonderful husband, and I just felt like there was nobody around me. It was obviously a symptom of depression, but it's very real, and I was ultimately pulled out of my old life entirely. Life as I knew it, I would say the first 25 years of my life, there's like a theme. And then everything after that, it's like everything is like completely different. I don't even know who that person was anymore. It's really crazy. A one house forces you into becoming who you truly are, as we experienced. So, or as we talked about earlier, and it breaks down anything that's false and not in integrity. That chapter for me was brutal. It was horrible to go through. But it was just the beginning of my spiritual path. And looking back, I can seriously say how grateful I am for it. And that house and its energetic signature completely supported all of that I was going through. And I would not be the person I am today had I not gone through all of those things. So it was my awakening house. It was my identity rupture house and my soul initiation house. So it got me primed for the next thing. And so after that, like if you've been following my story, I obviously had been laid off when we were living in the Omaha area, and I couldn't really find work in Nebraska. So we ended up coming back out to Utah. They relocated me out here. We've been here ever since. It's been really a great, refreshing move for us. Really great family move. And the next house, it was 4 numbers that added up to a 9. So this is what I'm calling the void house and the completion house, being the 9 energy that it carries. So, we moved to Utah into the house we just moved out of a couple months ago. We lived there for a year and some change. So I'll get to our current house right after this. But this house reduces down to a 9. So that's the number, again, of completion, karmic endings, soul purge, void space, massive emotional and energetic clearing. In that house, I experienced multiple massive energetic upgrades. So by that, I mean my soul expanded over and over and over again. I quantum leapt, you could say. That's actually something we're going to talk about in an episode soon, probably in this quarter of this season. But yeah, you just, as you always are upgrading into a higher timeline, you always have to purge all the beliefs that are no longer serving you, for example, or old things holding you back, or just dark energy or, negative energy that you don't need anymore. That's kind of like holding you back in the physical. It's really hard to go through and it kind of feels like you're getting nowhere, because it's like you're really great one day, you're feeling good, you're in flow, and then you crash down and you're like, what is happening? And so basically for an entire year, I was going through all of these like massive energetic upgrades and not really seeing anything manifesting in the physical, which isn't totally true. Like I manifested a business, that's real, that's obviously happening. And things like that I wanted to put into the world. But the big goals that I have set for myself and the things that I want to accomplish, or at the time that I wanted to accomplish, like they literally could not come to me because my energetic container wasn't big enough to support the things I was calling in. So, the universe will give you a way to support the things that you want to call in, but you have to go through this process of like the purge of the things that aren't serving you anymore, so that you can hold in more light, basically, so that your soul can hold in enough light that the universe can deliver the things to you that you're asking for in the physical form. So I went through a lot of that, as a true 9 house would suggest. I experienced intense sensitivity, dreams that were chaotic and clearing, because as you dream, sometimes when you have crazy dreams, that's like purging of old energies or timelines that aren't going to serve you anymore. I had complete emotional chaos. There was a lot of deep inner work I did, a lot of EFT. We'll talk about also in an episode soon. I had to do a lot of emotional work on myself to release things and beliefs that were no longer serving me. A lot of deep inner work, apathy and burnout. There were days where I'd wake up and I'd be like, I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't want to do anything. And what's even the point of all of this? It just really had me questioning a lot of some of these things that I was trying to put together for myself. I also had a few long-term relationships with people that were no longer serving me anymore, that came to an end abruptly. Things that probably needed to happen a while ago. It was just like I had no choice all of a sudden. Like these relationships were done. My identity completely dissolved. I am not the same person I was a year ago. Completely changed in so many ways, all for the better. Really, I'm so grateful for that. There were times where I felt too big for the space as far as like our dreams and goals and aspirations. Like I just felt like that home was not big enough after a while. Like nothing had really changed in our family size. And I'm like, all of a sudden I was like, this isn't going to work for me anymore. I remember one day we lived there for a year and I was just like looking around, and it was a nice house. Nothing was wrong with it. It was just a rental that we quickly got because we had to move out here pretty quick. But I just remember looking at everything. I was like, oh my God, like the carpet is disgusting. Like it wasn't that bad, but I was just all of a sudden like really worried about the cleanliness of everything, and was getting, it was almost like my soul had upgraded so much that like nothing less than pristine was going to work for me anymore. And I just woke up one day, I was like, no, we're getting professionals in to get everything deep cleaned. I don't care what it costs. We're doing that. So, I could tell I'd really been through something when that was happening. I was constantly integrating soul lessons into the physical, which has a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of collapse of what used to work for me, all of a sudden not working anymore. And finally, the rebuilding of the truer version of myself, in conjunction with the birth of my business, Unveil You. So a 9 house strips you down so that you can rise and become the better version of yourself. And that's exactly what that home did for me. It prepared me, it cleared me, and it ended entire karmic cycles. So this was my completion house, my void, and the end of the old me. And now we're in a home that it's 3 digits that add up to 22, which is a master number, a really beautiful master number. So this is my master builder house. And the way we got it, you guys, it was so funny because like I said, I just felt like we had outgrown the old space, and it was November, just before Thanksgiving. And I was casually browsing other rentals. And I was like, I just feel like we need another bedroom so I can have like a proper office. It really felt like we were kind of making do with what we had, but I really wanted a proper office because I wanted to take things more seriously and have a very good dedicated space. And I'm just browsing online, and this house that I'm now living in popped up that it looked like it had been listed for a couple months, but I couldn't find it before then. And I was like, oh, hey, let's go look at this. I scheduled a time for later in the week to come and visit it. It was an interesting application process. You have to, with this company, like tour the home physically before they allow you to apply for it. And so I was like, okay, well, whatever. I'm not really urgently needing to move, so it's no big deal. But it was one of those things that I was able to manifest this home, you could say, which it's funny. It's like it was that true surrender energy of like, I don't really, not that I don't care that I get this house. I want to move into this house. It looks really nice. Like we came, well, I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, I let go of the outcome up front of just like whatever happens, but this would be a great house to move into. So I think it was like a Tuesday. I booked the viewing for a Thursday that week. And the woman who was renting it calls me on Wednesday and was like, hey, can you come see the house today? And I was like, I've got like in 2 hours I can come see it. And she's like, no, that won't work for me. Sorry. I was like, okay, fine. We'll keep Thursday. No big deal. She calls me back about a half hour later. She's like, I don't know, guys. It was like spirit was just nudging her. She's like, you know what? The time that you gave me earlier, I can make it work if you can come. I have showings for this house all the rest of the day, and I want to make sure you guys get in. And why us? I don't know. We were just random people online, but she got us in, accommodated our time. We came and looked at the place. It was perfect, like in all ways. And as you know, I was disgusted with the carpet in the last house, brand new carpet, which in a rental is such a gift. So everything about it. I love it. Like there's a glass French doors that lead into an office. Like there's a lot of Utah homes that are beautiful that have features like that I'd always dreamed of having, just a dedicated office space with like lots of natural light and beautiful mountain views. And everything. It checked the box for everything, you guys, at this place. And it's huge. Like everything about it. It's amazing. And she said there was already an application in though, but we should go ahead and apply anyway because you never know. They might not qualify. And I was like, okay, well, we'll see. Well, turns out the people ahead of us did not qualify and we got the house. And it was amazing because if it hadn't have worked out the way it did, where she was like, harping on me to come and visit earlier and everything, we wouldn't have gotten it. So it was really exciting. And it was meant to be. That's what I'm getting at, basically, is like moving into this house was meant to be. So knowing that it's a 22 home also feels very meant to be. So let's get into what 22 means for me in this house. Nothing about this is random. So again, reminders, what does a 22 house do for you? This is where you stabilize, you begin your destiny timeline. Hello, that's what I've been trying to manifest for the rest of the last year. So that's so exciting. It's a foundational home. It's exciting. You get to build the life your soul came here to live. You get to embody your gifts. You get to ground your intuitive abilities, expand into leadership, experience emotional stability, grow your family, and manifest physical results, not just spiritual insight. So last year was my year of closing the karmic cycles, manifesting the spiritual insight, and now I've moved into the home that's energy signature now supports the manifestation of the physical results, literally demonstrated by the fact that I got this house in the first place in a super random, pretty impossible way. So when I walked into this house, I immediately felt it. It was relief, support, breath, stability, a sense of finally, this is the house where my identity will anchor. It's already been anchoring. Like I said, I took a couple months off to get moved into this house and really just physically integrate the soul lessons I had been getting pounded into me for the last year. And it made me feel safe enough to take a pause from all the things that had been, I don't mean this negatively, but just draining my energy. Things take energy, and I was just going and not giving myself the rest I deserved. So this gave me the ability to integrate and come out on the other side more inspired and energized than ever for the things to come in this year with my business and my career and things like that. My nervous system has been able to stabilize. My intuition can now ground more. My business takes shape in a real embodied way. My leadership gifts can awaken more, and our family can expand into its next chapter. Avery now has a little playroom area, which is great because we just had Christmas, and we all know when you got toddlers, how much stuff they get. So anyway, it's just been so fun to watch her have a proper space to play in. It just really makes my mom self very happy to see our daughter have the space that she needs. So this 22 house is my becoming house. It's my destiny house, and it's my master builder house. So it's a house that is ushering in a brand new era of my life. So it's really exciting. And I had no idea that this was a 22 house until after we'd already signed the lease and everything. So again, it's not like I was going out and chasing something like that. It's just the universe truly just brought it to me at the perfect time. And the number kind of reflects that. So in closing, here's the bigger invitation. I want you to look at the house that you're in, look at the numbers, and look at the season of life that you're navigating. You might find that there's a deeper story unfolding, one that your soul has quietly been guiding you through all along. Your home is not random. Your moves are not accidents. And your soul knows exactly where you're meant to live and what each chapter is meant to teach you. And when you see your life through this lens, the timeline makes sense, the healing makes sense, the endings make sense, and the expansions make sense. And your story has never been chaotic. It's been intelligent and very intentional. So again, it's not about going through things and not understanding and, just being upset all the time. It's like, if you can truly make sense of the things you're going through, it makes things a lot easier and it makes the dark times a lot less dark. So take it from me. I'm on the other side of a lot of energy work and intentional expansion. And I can say, when you can look at circumstances, good or bad, and always see the lesson in it, that's where you need to be in life. It really helps you out. So, if this episode stirred anything in you, like if you're in a season of transition or identity shift or visibility fears, or you feel like you're standing between an ending and a beginning, I would love to support you on that. If you go to my website or the link in the show notes here, I offer a complimentary 20-minute connection call where we can explore what chapter you're in, what your soul is trying to unravel or expand, where your energy is going next, and how to step into the version of you who is waiting on the other side. So there's no pressure or agenda in this call. It's just a space for grounded, compassionate, safe to be space to be seen. So you could book your call again in the link in the show notes. You can go to my website, unveilyou.co. And until next time, beautiful soul, unveil your truth, honor your seasons, and trust that your soul and your home know exactly where you're meant to go next. Hope you have a beautiful week. Bye.